Hi, this is Jeff Yarbrough, and I am your guest correspondent this week for Nashville Entertainment Weekly. We are visiting here today, and we have caught up with Julian Dawson, who is on his United States tour. Mr. Julian Dawson, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, my pleasure, and a cool place to be. I've been in the States now this visit. I come just about every year. I'm bang in the middle of recording a new album, which is taking place in Nashville. And I'm working with not somebody really, not a country person, but a legendary soul producer, Dan Penn. And this is the second time we've worked together, and we're doing an acoustic album. I've cut tracks all last week, and I'm taking a weekend break to play some live shows here in Memphis and going back to carry on and finish the album next week.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about how you got started in music. Let's go back to the beginning just a little bit.
Well, I'm one of seven brothers. I have six brothers, and I'm bang in the middle of them.
Amazing disappearing Patty.
And I would say that growing up, I was born in 1954, so I was 15 when Woodstock happened and when the 60s was exploding and all that stuff. So I would say that my first influences were definitely the sort of British invasion, as you'd call it here, the beat groups, London scene of that time. So bands like the Kinks, the Who, the Beatles, of course. That's where I started from. My brothers all loved music, but I was obsessed from really early on. I know that I was singing along with records when I was 5 years old. And I still have a thing now where I know all the lyrics to everything I ever liked. So I don't really need that. I write my own songs, but I still do know all these thousands of lyrics. It's amazing.
An easy rider, travel on, though your spirit and your dreams have gone.
I have probably written, something in the region of 600 or 700 songs, I would think. Of those, I've recorded about 200. I've made 21 albums. So I think there's about 200 songs that I've recorded. And I would say there's a repertoire of maybe 250 that I would consider good enough to be worth playing to people. I think every songwriter's probably got a certain amount of stuff that gets thrown away to hopefully get the good stuff.
Tell us a little bit about your association with Nashville. You're here cutting an album, and from what I can see, you've got some roots here. You've got some history here in Nashville.
Well, I actually did two albums here in the early 90s. And my producer was Gary Talent from the E Street Band, the bass player from Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, who was living, like many people from other cities. He's from New Jersey, of course. He was living in Nashville. We hooked up. It's a small town, so I found that by coming over here and having the love of the music that I had already, I very quickly hooked into some really quite amazing people. And I remember my very first trip, I was signed to a big publisher. I was with Warner Chappell. And I loved it back then because the first morning I woke up in Nashville, they put me up in a place called the Spence Manor, which is a known kind of apartment building. And I remember opening the curtains the first morning I was in Nashville, and there was a guitar-shaped swimming pool outside. And then in that first 3-week visit, I wrote songs with Vince Gill, with Tony Colton, who was a big writer, with Gene Pistilli, who had written songs for, #1 songs for Randy Travis, with Dennis LeCorrier from Dr. Hook. And I was just suddenly in this sort of amazing high-level world, if you like. And later on, Vince Gill played on a couple of my albums. I worked with Barry Beckett, who was a famous producer and keyboard player that people will know. Lucinda Williams, I've got a duet with Lucinda from when we hooked up. So there was this sort of thing where it was not my lawyer calling your lawyer. It was just bumping into somebody at a show or at a bar or at a restaurant or at someone's house, and just finding yourself ending up in these extraordinary situations. I can remember being with Lucinda and being invited around John Prine's house and sitting passing a guitar around in a circle. It's like John Prine, Lucinda Williams, I can't remember who else was there, but just this extreme high caliber of talent. And suddenly the guitar's in your hands, you think, what the hell am I going to play now? I think people appreciate, coming from England, they appreciate as a songwriter that I have a really very different point of view and a different history. So I can bring a colour to say co-writing that is really different for them. I can't say that I've had top 10 country hits out of co-writing in Nashville, but I've had songs covered by Dolores Keane in Ireland, by Rosie Flores, by Charlie Louvin from the Louvin Brothers, which was a great. I mean, I didn't make much money off it, but what a compliment that a true country legend would say, "I love that song, I want to cut it," and that means more to me than dollars, honestly. I live in England. I always have done. Actually, the place on the planet where I'm most successful is in Germany, Holland, Austria, Switzerland, those countries on the European continent. I do play in England regularly, but when I was younger, I was fronting bands. I was the lead singer, and it was kind of my songs and my band. And the place where we could get the best response and be paid as a band that wasn't famous and signed to a record company was on the continent, because in England we played all the legendary places like the Marquee Club in London, but you didn't make any money. So we used to go abroad, and then what happened from that was that my fan base that I built up by live performance was actually away from home, and that's remained actually kind of a you could say a curse for me. I'm one of those prophets that's a little bit ignored in his own country, and I come over here to the States and Canada. Like I say, I try and come every year. So I'm not kind of up at the Elton John level, but I've lived now from my music and nothing else for almost 40 years, which I think is a miracle.
40 years. That's
yeah.
Great. Yeah. And I understand your fan base is growing exponentially here in America.
Well, steadily. I mean, the thing about the States is I first came to Nashville in 1989. And the thing about the States is it's so big that to really crack the scene and become a known figure and touring at a higher level, you've just got to be here all the time, because it's, you need to slam it and go from coast to coast and north to south. Well, I have kids and a family in England. I love my job, but there are limits. I just don't even want to be away the whole time, not just for a career.
So you're also fluent in what other language?
I speak, well, I picked it up from the streets, but I speak fluent German, and in England you learn French in school, and then I had a French girlfriend, and it's close by, so I speak French and German as well as English, yeah, and a little bit of Danish because I'm married to a Danish woman now.
She taught you all the good words.
No, I picked up the usual musician's filth that you need along the side. No, I mean I don't speak it fluently, probably because when I met her I was already too old and encrusted to be as fresh to learn it.
So where you go from here?
Well, my career now, I'm amazed to discover or realize that I'm going to be 60 years old on the 4th of July this summer. My past career, I was on major labels for probably 15 years. I was with Polydor and BMG, and what we were trying to do at that time was get a hit and crack the radio and compete, with, and I was successful, but not, like I said, not sort of Elton John type successful. And in due course, I moved over to smaller independent record labels. And as anyone who's interested in the music industry will know, the industry is kind of collapsing around our ears as we speak as a result of the internet. So everything's kind of shrunk down a little bit. I tour very often in Europe. I'll tour with a small lineup, not a full drum kit, but with maybe a guitarist and a keyboard player, something like that. Over here in the States, I'm a singer-songwriter on his own. Always have come over here on my own because of financial constraints. So I think now, from now on, I'm still writing. Like I say, this new album I'm recording with Dan Penn, that's 11 new songs that I've written. I'm not as frantic about it as I used to be. I think I have a grandson now. Yeah, he's 2 years old, and you try and balance having a personal life that sort of works to some degree, and to keep your place in the industry. Excuse me. I've been lucky I have very, very loyal fans in certain places, and my most recent release was a retrospective box set with 3 CDs, 56 songs, a swishy booklet with 40 pages and stuff. So you can still sell stuff, but you've got to get out there and play to do that. So I thankfully I love performing live. I mean, for me that is real. That's where the real music happens. Recording's fun too, but be in front of an audience. It doesn't matter whether it's a small house concert or a big stage. I just love performing. I think it's what I was.
Seen the crabs and the fish ashes. Looking back at me, my bucket's got a hole in it. My bucket's got a hole in it. My bucket's got a hole in it. Can't buy no bid.
What about the house concert concept? That's something that's happening quite a bit here in America.
Yeah, I first came across it here in the States, and probably about 10 years back, actually, as a side product. Some people who were super fans might get upset that you never came to their part of the country, and would offer to put on a show themselves for their friends and neighbors or whatever. And my experience of it was just always just so warm and friendly and profitable sometimes too, because you might often be playing to people that weren't really music experts, and often they'd never seen anything like that before in their lives, so that they would buy anything that wasn't nailed to the table pretty much. So you can come out of a small situation with quite a substantial reward, whereas if you're playing in, say, a club in Memphis, you're up against all the other bands that are in the newspaper, and the house concert thing has the advantage of being very personal and a little bit private. I think it's exploded now to a degree where it's almost becoming a circuit like everything else. And again, anyone who knows the industry a little bit will be aware that there's thousands of singer-songwriters now. There used to be a few hundred. Now there's thousands. And there's just probably not really room for everybody. So the competition is intense. As I say, my blessing is I have a little bit of a history and some very loyal fans. Quite a bit of history. And I hope by now, if I don't know what I'm doing by now, then I never will. So,
Well, thanks for being with us today. And so you're going to be tonight at a house concert, and 30, 40, 50 of loyal fans, and it's going to be close and personal, and just like you're singing to each person, right?
that's what I hope. And I mean, the other thing that I have to say is that, as you can imagine, coming from England, to be recording in Nashville, playing in Memphis, it is a trip. It's not just like playing around the corner at home. I really love coming here. I love I particularly love the South and the Southern vibe. I think it's the friendliest, and I've been lucky enough to work with some of the legends of that scene. I produced Charlie Louvin from the Louvin Brothers, Dan Penn, who was down in Muscle Shoals writing all those hits like Dark End of the Street. This is amazing stuff, and to have the privilege of being allowed to be friends and to work with these people is something I absolutely treasure.
Tell us how to get in touch with you.
Well, like everybody else, I have a website. That's juliandawson.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm not a very active tweeter, I must say. That's a step further than I want to go. So you're not going to go on Twitter and see me saying I just went to the store and bought a cup of coffee or anything like that. But I feel that if people want to find you, they will. And
so that's juliandawson.com.
www.juliandawson.com, and on Facebook, I guess I'm also Julian Dawson. That's just I think I'm the most active Julian Dawson. There are a few others in the world, but I seem to be still managed to get to be top of the list.
I checked.
Okay, I'm glad I'm still top of the charts.
Yeah.
At least that.
All right. Well, thanks for being with us today, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. Stay in tune for what's happening around Nashville and the surrounding areas. Thank you very much, and y'all have a great evening.